how-to wire, how-to video, how to make your own, hardtop part, how to change the oil, how to fix taillight problems, how to install, how to do a complete tune-up. I'm going to show you how to do that. In this video, I'm going to show you how to top off your AC system. This is a video for people that are kind of intimidated about actually refilling their AC systems. And I can't stress this enough, this is only if your AC system is currently working. You know, it's blowing cool air or cold air, it's just not cold enough. If your AC system is blowing hot air or warm air, I wouldn't attempt doing any of this because most likely you have some other issue. That being said, I was at the auto parts store the other day and saw an older lady in line that had a can, just like this, of some refrigerant that you can do by yourself. You know, it's one of those DIY kind of things. But she had it up on the counter and she asked the guy, "Where do I take this to have it put in?" And she had no idea that, you know, you could do it yourself. Well, it turns out that there was a guy on his lunch break and did it in the parking lot for her. But that gave me the idea to do this video. So that day I actually picked up that can of refrigerant. Another example, I had a friend that, this has been years ago, had a can of that rolling around in his trunk. And when I saw it, I told him, I was like, you know, when they told you that you just put it in your car, it doesn't mean throw it in the trunk. You actually have to put it in your car. And he said that the reason why he never did it was he read through the instructions and stuff, and that he was afraid that he was going to mess something up because of just the way that the instructions were worded and stuff. So I've seen a lot of people deterred from topping off their own AC systems because of like the instructions and stuff like that, and the fear of messing something up. So that's what this video is going to be about, is basic, minimal, just topping off the refrigerant in your AC system. Normally I would do this with an actual manifold, so I would have a gauge for the high pressure and the low pressure. This is just going to show you how to get your AC blowing cool again. This isn't going to be, you know, the professional way of doing it. As I said, I would use a manifold that had a high pressure and a low pressure gauge. But this is just how you would do it if you bought this at the auto parts store. This is R134A, which is your standard refrigerant for all vehicles pretty much within the last 20 years. I think it's from 1996 and up. It was required of vehicle manufacturers to start running R134A refrigerant. Basically, we'll try to make this as easy as possible and show you that, you know, anybody can do this. This is a quick, easy, inexpensive way to get your AC back into shape. So I called a couple local shops, and the cheapest that I could find was $120, when you can do this yourself from anywhere from $20 to $50. With all that being said, all the warnings and precautions and the long drawn-out story, let's get started on this, and I'll run through all of the stuff that you're going to need to do this. Here's everything that you'll need. The first thing being your refrigerant, some gloves, a pair of safety glasses, a screwdriver, and a thermometer if you want to see how much cooler the air is. Let's start off by raising the hood. And then if you're in a garage like I am, you're going to want to open up the garage door and either back the vehicle out slightly just to get your exhaust out of the garage, because you will have to do this with the vehicle running, so you don't want to do it in a garage with the garage door closed, of course. So I'm going to get the garage door open and get the camera repositioned so you can see exactly what I'm doing. On this vehicle, the low pressure side happens to be located over here, and the high pressure side is located over here. There's a lot of websites that you can go to, and you can put in the exact make and model and year of your vehicle, and it'll show you which is the high and low pressure side. As I showed before, that some of the cans and some of the websites will say that the low pressure is bigger tubing and the high pressure is smaller. Well, they are exactly the same size tubing, so that can be kind of confusing. But this one is the low pressure side, and they kind of make it somewhat foolproof. If you were to take off both of these caps, these are just plastic caps, nothing's going to happen when you take these off. The actual coupling that comes with the refrigerant will actually only fit on the low pressure side, which will be the smaller fitting. So maybe they misworded it, stating that, you know, look for the smaller diameter fitting and not tubing, because when they say tubing, you know, you would think of this here, but they're exactly the same size. This is the high pressure side, and the coupler won't fit on this side. We're going to take our can of refrigerant and our hose, and if you notice, if I can show you here and get it in focus, that it has this safety tab that needs to be removed. So you need to remove your plastic fitting and gauge. Yours may look different, but they're all fairly similar. They all are pretty much the same thing. This is just a safety cap that needs to be removed so that it doesn't get, that the can doesn't get punctured in, you know, transport, or, you know, people just don't go through the store and start, you know, puncturing the cans, because if you notice, unlike a spray can, this is solid, and then when you screw your hose back on, this actually has a little sharp point to it down inside here that will actually puncture the can. But before we do that, we're going to set the can aside, and we're going to take our gauge and our valve, and we're going to start the vehicle. I'm explaining some of this now so that you can hear me before I start the vehicle. You should still be able to hear me once I start it, but just in case you can't, we're actually going to connect this to the low pressure side. And how you do that is, you'll see here that you can actually pull up on this. You'll pull up on it and snap it over top of this line and let go, and you'll feel it snap on. If you were to try it on the high pressure side, it just wouldn't click on there. And when you have that on there, you're going to check on your gauge, and your gauge will have a couple temperatures. So you want to find whatever temperature it happens to be outside and set it. And we are at about the 85 plus degrees right now. So I moved the little dial to that, and that'll show where you want your needle to be pointing once you're done charging. So when you hook this up to the vehicle, when it's running, if your needle is already in that area, then it doesn't need a charge. Or if it's in the red, then it's got too much of a charge and you need to, you know, let a professional deal with it, or you could have some other issue with your system. And if it's way down here in the blue, you know that it's really, really low on refrigerant. Once that is snapped on there, you're going to screw the can on, and it's going to puncture the top of the can. And then you'll be able to use this little thumb valve here, and you'll want to do it in bursts to actually charge the refrigerant into the system. And while doing that, you'll want to kind of move the can around a little bit. I normally just turn the can upside down. Some of them will tell you to, you know, swirl the can. Some of them will say shake the can. I normally just turn the can upside down. So I want to try to explain all of that before I start the vehicle, just in case you can't hear me. If you can't hear me while the vehicle's running, then I'll probably just end up explaining all of this over again. So now we're going to get everything out from underneath the hood and out of the way of any of your belts or anything like that, and start the vehicle. Then we're going to come down here, make sure that our AC is turned on, turn it to vent, and turn it on high. What we're going to do is watch the temperature. You can see that it's going down. It seems that we've bottomed out at about 64.5 degrees, which is actually pretty warm for an AC system. And this isn't a step that you have to do. This is just something that I'm doing to show a comparison in the before and after charging the system. Okay, we've got the engine running. We've got the air conditioning turned on high, or max cool. You can see that the actual compressor is running since that is spinning. We're going to attach our gauge to the low pressure side, again like I showed you, by squeezing and then pushing down until it clicks. Now it clicked, and as you can see, I'm not sure if you can see that far. Let's see if I can zoom in here and show you. You can see that you can turn this dial. I've got it set for about 85 degrees, and it says 85 plus, which it is. And if you notice that we are below that. So now what we're going to do, let me zoom back out so you can see what's going on. Oh, that's in. We're going to screw the can onto the line. Make sure it's good and tight. And like I said, they'll say to move the can around and stuff. I like to just hold the can upside down. That should settle back down a little bit, because as you can see, that brought it up pretty much around to the max that it needed, which wasn't very much at all. But as you can see, it's slowly going back down. I think you can see that. You can see that it's up there pretty much at the maximum. Staying pretty steady. Didn't have to put much in it at all, actually, which was surprising. Okay, what we can do is we can actually set this aside, as long as it's not going to get in the way of anything or get set against anything hot, and then we're going to go inside and check and see if the temperature actually changed. Okay, now that we've got that in the green where we want it, we can disconnect it. Now, if it didn't use the whole can, you're going to have to leave this installed onto the can, because if you unscrew this, all the refrigerant's just going to start coming out. So you need to leave that on there. If it actually used the entire can, or eventually once you empty the entire can, you can unscrew this and keep this hose and valve set up, and you can actually buy just the cans of refrigerant for a lot cheaper if you have to do, you know, say another one of your vehicles or the same vehicle again later on down the road, which you shouldn't have to unless you have some type of leak in the system. With that done, make sure you still have your gloves on and your safety glasses, and you want to kind of look down here to where you just had that hose attached, and make sure that you don't see anything like bubbling or anything coming out, you know, that would show a sign of a leak or anything. If you do happen to have some bubbling, that's where the screwdriver would come in. Make sure you have your safety glasses and your gloves on. If you're comfortable with doing this, stand off to the side where your face is away from the line of this, and then you'll see a little gold piece sticking up through there. You'll take the screwdriver and just push down really quick like that. Give it a second, and then you can look again and see if that bubbling stopped, because what happens sometimes is a little bit of dirt might get down inside there and the valve won't come back up in seat. And when you do the little push like that, it'll actually blow that debris out of there and let it seal, so we don't have any leaks. Now, just take your cap, screw your cap back on, you're done. I'm just going to take a second to talk about the controls, because surprisingly, some people don't know what this little symbol here is. This is actually a recirculation setting for your air conditioning, or actually your heater and everything. This recirculation setting here is actually better to cool your vehicle down faster. So it's going to blow cold air out of your vents into the vehicle, and then it's going to suck it back through, normally from underneath the dash, and it's going to cool it down again and blow it back out even colder. So it's easier for the system to actually make cool air cooler, if that makes sense. Your normal vent setting just sucks fresh air from outside, which if you have your air conditioning on, then most likely the fresh air outside is going to be hot. So it's actually going to be harder for it to cool that air down and put it into the cabin. But there are some downsides to using the recirculation. If you use the recirculation for long periods of time, say you're on some kind of road trip or something like that, or you have a vehicle full of people, it's using all of the air inside the vehicle. It recirculates the air continuously. So as it's recirculating the air and people are breathing the air, there's less and less oxygen in the air, and it adds more and more moisture to the air as it recirculates every time. Eventually, you're breathing air that has less oxygen in it, which could, cause drowsiness, dizziness and stuff like that. But that's normally not an issue